My wife said she was working late every night. Then I found the apartment she was hiding the first time my wife came home smelling like someone else's cologne. I convinced myself I was imagining things. It was almost midnight. I was sitting on the couch with the television playing quietly in the background when I heard the front door open. My wife, Claire, walked inside. She looked exhausted. At least that was what she wanted me to think. She dropped her purse on the table, kicked off her shoes, and walked toward me. "You're still awake?" I nodded. "I was waiting for you." She smiled and kissed my forehead. "Sorry, another late night," she sighed. "Yeah, the Henderson account is a nightmare." That was her answer every time. The Henderson account. For almost 3 months, those 3 words explained everything. The late night, the canceled dinners, the weekends when she suddenly had to answer emails, the phone calls she took outside, the new clothes, the expensive perfume. I trusted my wife. We had been married for 7 years. We weren't newlyweds. We had survived job losses, family problems, financial stress, and the death of her father. I thought our marriage was strong, but something had changed. Claire had become distant, not angry, not cold, just absent. It was like her body was still living in our house, but the rest of her had gone somewhere else. One Saturday morning, I asked her if everything was okay. She was making coffee. She didn't look at me. "Why wouldn't it be? You seem different." She finally looked up. "Different how? I don't know. You're always working." She laughed. "That's what happens when you're trying to get promoted." I smiled. I wanted to believe her, so I did, at least for another few weeks. Then something happened that I couldn't explain away. It was a Thursday. Claire had left her laptop on the dining table while she showered. A notification appeared. Normally, I wouldn't have looked, but the message preview contained a name I recognized. "Daniel, I wish you were here tonight." Daniel was her coworker. I had met him once. He had shaken my hand at a company Christmas party. I remembered Claire introducing him as one of the people on her team. I stared at the screen. Another message appeared. "Daniel, tomorrow can't come soon enough." I felt something drop inside me. When Claire returned, I didn't confront her. I couldn't, not yet. I needed to know whether I was looking at something terrible or simply misunderstanding something innocent. That night after she fell asleep, I checked our shared credit card. There were several hotel charges, not local hotels, different cities, different weekends. Then I found something else. An apartment rental, a monthly payment for almost a year. I stared at the address. It was only 20 minutes from our house. My wife had been paying for an apartment without ever telling me. The next morning, I asked her about it. She froze. "What apartment?" I showed her the transaction. She stared at the screen. Then she said something that I wasn't expecting. "It's for work." I almost laughed. "An apartment?" "Yes, sometimes I need somewhere to stay when I'm working late." I looked at her. "You've been renting it for almost a year." She nodded. "I was going to tell you." "When?" She didn't answer. I asked for the address. She became angry. "Why are you checking my finances?" "Because we're married." She walked away. That was the first time I realized she wasn't scared that I had discovered an apartment. She was scared that I might discover what happened inside it. I waited until Saturday. Then I drove there. The building was expensive, much more expensive than anything Claire would normally choose. I sat across the street for almost an hour. Nothing happened. Then a man arrived. Daniel. He entered the building. 10 minutes later, Claire arrived. I felt sick. They walked inside together. I didn't follow them. I didn't need to. I already knew. I went home. That night, Claire came through the door around 11. She looked at me. I was sitting at the kitchen table. She immediately knew something was wrong. "Where were you tonight?" "At work." I nodded. "No, you weren't." She went silent. I told her I'd seen her with Daniel. She started crying. Then she said the words I had been expecting. "I'm sorry." I asked how long. She said 8 months. 8 months, 8 months of lying, 8 months of fake meeting, 8 months of pretending to be exhausted while living another life. I asked her why. She said she didn't know. "That's what everyone says. I don't know why. I was lonely. I didn't feel appreciated." "You could have told me." "I know. You could have left." "I know. Then why didn't you?" She couldn't answer. I thought that was the end of the story. I thought I'd discovered the affair. I thought the worst thing I'd have to deal with was the fact that my wife had been sleeping with another man. I was wrong. Because the next morning, Daniel called me. I almost didn't answer. When I did, he didn't sound angry. He sounded terrified. "We need to talk." I told him there was nothing left to discuss. He said, "You don't understand. Your wife lied to me too." I went silent. He continued. "She told me your marriage was over." I laughed bitterly. "It isn't." "I know. She told me you had been separated for months. She said you were sleeping in different rooms. She said you'd agreed to divorce after the holidays. None of it was true." I asked him why he was telling me this. "Because I found something." He wanted to meet. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop. When he arrived, he looked exhausted. He placed his phone on the table. Then he showed me messages, hundreds of them. Claire had told him an entirely different story. She told him I was controlling. She said I didn't love her anymore. She said I refused to give her a divorce. She told him she was terrified of me. I looked at Daniel. "Did you believe her?" For a while. Then he shook his head. Something didn't add up. "What?" He said Claire had started asking him for money, not directly. She would talk about financial problems. She would mention needing help with the apartment. She would complain that she couldn't afford to move out. Daniel had given her money, a lot of it. I felt sick again. "How much?" He told me. It was more than I expected. Then he showed me bank transfers. Claire had been taking money from him. At first, small amounts, then larger amount. I asked him whether she had ever told him she loved him. He nodded. "Every day." Then he asked me something. "Did she tell you she loved you?" I stared at him, of course. He leaned back. "Then I think she was telling both of us whatever we wanted to hear." That sentence stayed with me because it explained everything. Claire wasn't choosing between two men. She was maintaining two separate realities. I asked Daniel about the apartment. He said something strange. She wasn't always there. Sometimes she disappeared for days. I asked who else had access. He didn't know. We went together to the apartment building. Claire wasn't there. Daniel had a key. He had been given 1 month earlier. When we entered, I expected to find evidence of their relationship. Instead, we found something much stranger. There were boxes, dozens of them, documents, clothes, photograph, and a second phone. Daniel looked at me. "What's that?" I picked it up. It was locked. We found receipts showing that Claire had been buying things under another name. Then we found several letters. They were addressed to a woman I'd never heard of. The name was Rebecca Mason. I asked Daniel if he knew her. No, neither did I. Then we found a photograph. Claire was standing beside Rebecca. They looked incredibly close. On the back of the photograph was a date. It was from 3 years earlier, before Daniel, before the apartment, before I had ever suspected anything. I suddenly realized this was bigger than an affair. I called Claire. She answered immediately. "Where are you?" "At work." I said nothing. Then I asked, "Who is Rebecca?" Silence. I heard her breathing. Then she whispered, "You weren't supposed to find that." I felt cold. "Who is she?" Claire started crying. "She's my sister." I was confused. "Your sister?" "I have a sister." She explained that Rebecca was her half-sister. They had the same father. They had grown up separately. Claire had discovered her existence years ago, but there was more. Rebecca had been struggling financially. Claire had been secretly supporting her. The apartment wasn't originally for Claire. It had been rented so Rebecca could stay there. The boxes belonged to her. The money transfers weren't all for Daniel. Some had gone to Rebecca. I looked at Daniel. For the first time, none of us knew what was happening, but one question remained. Why had Claire hidden all of this? When she finally came home, she told me everything. Her father had abandoned Rebecca before she was born. Years later, Rebecca found Claire. They became close. Claire's father had died without ever acknowledging Rebecca. Claire felt guilty. She wanted to help her, but she was ashamed that she'd been secretly giving away money. Then Daniel came into the picture. The affair started, and instead of admitting what she'd done, Claire began lying about everything. One lie became another, then another. Eventually, she had created an entire secret life. I asked her the question that mattered. "Did you ever plan to tell me?" She cried. "I don't know." That answer hurt more than anything, because it meant she hadn't been planning to come clean. She had simply been waiting to see how long she could keep everything hidden. I moved out that week. I didn't immediately file for divorce. I needed time. Claire begged me to come back. Daniel ended his relationship with her. Rebecca eventually moved out of the apartment. And the strange thing was that after all the lies were exposed, I realized something. The affair wasn't what destroyed our marriage. It was the deception. I could have survived a painful truth. What I couldn't survive was waking up every morning beside someone who had built an entire second life and decided I didn't deserve to know about it. Months later, Claire and I finalized our divorce. She apologized. I accepted the apology, but I didn't take her back. Sometimes forgiveness doesn't mean reopening the door. Sometimes it simply means you stop carrying the anger with you. I still think about that apartment. For almost a year, I believed it was the place where my wife had betrayed me. In reality, it was the place where every secret she'd been hiding eventually collided. And that's the part I learned the hard way. A relationship usually doesn't collapse because of one secret. It collapses because of all the smaller lies someone tells to protect that secret. And once those lies start piling up, eventually the truth doesn't knock. It kicks the door down.
Like and subscribe for more videos like these. Thanks for watching.